and we are live streaming. We are live streaming here at Omi's Production Studio. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on this special news report. I'm sure by now all of the stations have reported on it. I'm a little late, never too late, but always right on time on subjects that need to be addressed by African Americans. And as you know, in our arena, we do connect with the historical Black universities and colleges, and we're concerned about what goes on there. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring to give my 2 cents on the subject of the White House making their appearance at one of the historical Black universities and colleges. I'm a little bit concerned because of the fact that we are now starting to fess up and to also establish ourselves as a real eye-watching advocacy group for real news. And this is real news, ladies and gentlemen, that is being reported. This is real news talking about, because of our historical Black societies and colleges, they need to be speaking out more about what went on, what transpired, and what shouldn't have happened. And as it stands now, our criminal justice system is broke, and we do need an audience from the White House or from our illustrious president about what is going on with the criminal defense unit, with our judicial system, and the fact that we are being gunned down by the men in blue, and that our people are now starting to rise up and say, we want an audience, President Trump. We want to sit down with you and talk about what are the real issues and how can we begin to look at what we can do to make a difference and changing our judicial system. And I think that young group of students, they were planning for this and they had made preparation, and they had the 2020 group over them to prepare them to speak to our president and to address what is going on in the criminal system and why so many African Americans are still awaiting to pay their bonds, who have no money, who are broke and down out and have no money to pay for their bonds to be released from prison. There are so many family members there that Roland Martin has actually set up a society to collect funds to help those families to pay their bonds so they can return home to their families by Christmas. Now, it seems like the only people that are doing crimes appears to be the African American, one would think. But nevertheless, we've got people pulling the pistol so fast before they can even think about what is the situation. It seems like some of these people that are slap happy on pulling the trigger are the ones that need to be incarcerated and protected from those who are not bearing arms. But nevertheless, there was a school that decided that they were going to address the president and to ask questions, and they were hoping to have a question and answering session. Unfortunately, the White House stepped in and decided to take over that campus and bring on their own staff to talk about or to hear the president lecture and to receive an honorary award, when in fact this whole scenario was not predicated on him speaking, neither him receiving an award, but it was on this class of young men and women speaking about the ills of our judicial system and our legal system, and as well as our men in blue. So they never got a chance to have their day in court to speak to the president. He took no questions and answers, and he did receive the gift, I understand, or the award. But nevertheless, this historical Black society university has fessed up and decided that we, in all of these many different black colleges, should have a presence in speaking up and should very well take our turn in asking the president to come and to address our questions and not to come with his own agenda. From what I understood, he came with his own agenda, and I was told that each one of these students were told not to come out of their room and not to pursue any speeches or questions and answers, and they were forbidden to even come to be a part of this event. It was a hostile takeover. Nevertheless, we didn't get the questions answered, and there's still groups of people that have formalized themselves all around the 50 states, questioning our judicial system, our criminal system, and wanting some answers, some serious answers. But yet, a lot of us are letting this hostile takeover happen, and the president has not only showed up there, but many other places with his own agenda and itinerary. Now, that's not to say that we have not addressed any of the issues that is personally going on with him. That is for another time and day. But what we're talking about is Black historical colleges and universities rising up to have a platform, possibly coming together under all the universities and not under one house, because it's too easy for a hostile takeover to occur. But finding somewhere in a safe place that they can hide out and prepare for this next episode so that the president can be invited appropriately as one of those political Republicans who is running for office and not as the president. Because as the president, he has many perks and many options that he can use against any black historical college. He's going to have to come in as a group of attendants who are running for the president election. And therefore, he'd be treated just like all the Republicans or all of the Democrats. And those various different colleges that do come together, they're going to have to set precedents that if the president does not accept their offer to come in and to take question and answers, then they will pose the question and answers to the society at large. And we will have conversation about each issue. But we have a serious problem, Houston. Our problem is so serious that now our president, he has decided that he will not address the questions that these young men and women have. He will not talk about criminal impartiality, where it's not fit for black people anymore. They're not given the proper opportunity to utilize our Constitution to have freedom of speech. That has been taken away, and it was taken away from those youngsters at their university. They did not have the proper freedom of right to speak and to speak out on impartiality. And there's definitely impartiality everywhere you go. It rings out in the courtyard. It rings out in the courtroom that there is some discrimination or white supremacists prevailing throughout the community. There is no help for us African American, because if it was the young lady who was killed, Mrs. Jefferson, because someone called in, not a 911, but called in a safety check on this young woman. If you cannot call in a safety check and get some satisfaction, instead you end up being dead, then who can call in these particular situations where one might be afraid that their neighbor is possibly going to have to be vindicated from death? In this case, someone who came in on the call did not identify themselves, did not even say, halt, hold your hands up, or did not say, show me your hands, but they shot in to the window while this young lady was in her home engaging her nephew. And nevertheless, it took them so long to make a decision over whether or not guilty or not and to sentence this man. We keep having these situations go on, and now our president won't answer the question about the criminal defense. Is it broken? Does it need to be fixed? How can we assist and aid him in fixing it? I say that the laws that they have created for us are much harsher, and it seems like only the black people are being chastised and brought into the task of law. So therefore, we must establish our own criminal defense, and we must judicate our own people with our council of elders. I request immediately that the council of elders must be put into effect and must sit on the bench immediately, ASAP. And when there is a altercation or criminal defense, it must go to our council of the elders, and they must decide what is to be done with that young man or young woman, and all hands off from the police department or the criminal defense must be mandated, because there is no sensitivity in dealing with the black. They see him or her as being guilty under all pretense before they're ever tried. And they're shooting them down before they even get to ask them to hold your hands up. Show me your hands. So we are a little fed up. We are a little tired of asking you to do right by us when you have pitted our men in blue against those that are black and used them to incarcerate us and to use unnecessary roughness with us, and that no one else has experienced, not a white man, not a Caucasian, not a Jewish person, not a Hispanic person. They're not being shot down in the street, and they're not being brought in as criminals. You don't see the jail cells maxed out with Caucasian people. That should tell you something. The system is broken when you have criminals that are Caucasian that are going unnoticed. And now the families who can't afford to pay. It takes money to beat cases in court, and those who have the money are beating the cases in court, and those who don't have bond money are staying in jail. We got a broken system. We got a leaky tank and a leaky valve somewhere that's not being attended to, but yet we keep talking about it and bringing it up, and then when they are bringing these men into task, they're taking so long to make a decision over whether or not they're guilty, and sometimes they think that money can substitute for the loss of a life, but money cannot substitute for the loss of a life. And in a civil case, you cannot pay the family enough money to justify the killing of that young soul. So I feel that the black campuses are doing the right thing. They are coming together and organizing themselves with other major groups like 2020 to make a decision to have a platform to talk to our president about these murders. Now, our president shows up in Chicago and he points out the fact that Chicago is one of the worst crime-ridden states or cities. But nevertheless, he goes there and he attacks their head of the police department and talks to them as if they're the one that is creating this environment for criminal behavior. And if you look at Chicago, it has the harshest treatments for gun control. So why would there be so many guns there unless somebody's taking those guns there and dropping them off? We got a serious problem, and I don't think it's because black people are committing crimes, I think it's because the black people are the only ones that are patrolled. You do not see other members of non-African American groups that are hunted down, pulled out of cars, shot when their hands are up, and shot while they're in the midst of their home occupied. You do not hear of this. And it's not a coincidence. It is not an accident. It is a planned event. And we, as African citizens, as advocates, must begin to point these things out. I want to give Roland Martin a 2 thumbs up for a job well done. I don't care what you think of this man. He brings out the problems and he addresses it, and he brings a panel to address what is wrong. I have to give Fly Nubian Queen 2 thumbs up for the great job that they're doing there and bringing out inadequacy, injustice, and they're speaking on the topic. And I want you to know that if you are a radio station, if you have a YouTube channel, we've got to make sure our voices are heard with real news to talk about what is really going on. Now, we just looked over the situation where the Russians were brought to task to ask about the prior election and what happened. And they came forward and they gave the word on what happened. But yet nothing is being done about it. We are allowing other non-Melanite people to escape their punishment, but yet they're locking up every black person that they can. So this should tell you something. This should tell you that we got a system that is broken and a system that has to be addressed, a system that has to face the music when they're locking up so many African Americans and now going to their homes to shoot them down for no cause and no reason. Most of the police department should be brought up on challenge and put on no home until they've been called back. Shut them down. They're not serving the purpose that they should. Innocent people are being marked for targets. And if this is how you do criminal work, somebody has miseducated people on criminology, because we got a serious problem with the criminals running free, but yet they're shooting everybody down that they can find. Something is not right. In these Black historical colleges, I say to you young men and women, yes, you should be concerned, because it's your peers that are being hunted down and shot. Yes, you should be concerned, because it's our next generation that is going to have to pass the legacy on. But how can they when they don't trust the penal institution or the judicial system or even the police department? We cannot hope to call the policeman when we really need it, for fear of what the policemen may turn and do to our families. And it's very necessary that these discussions should be had. President Trump, we want an audience with you. We want to talk to you. We want to find out what your plans are. We know you're planning on running again. You're one of the candidates. And the candidates should be interviewed to ask them what are their plans for our criminology? What are their plans for our police department? What plans do you have? Because this is what we're predicating our vote on, whether or not you can get this criminology into control and put it together where you segregate. This is where I want to see segregation. No longer should the Caucasian be able to have the authority to persecute a black. Send him to their department of elders, of the 13 elders, to make the decision over whether or not they are going to be punished or persecuted. Then govern your own. And let me see white crime. Let me see what it looks like. Let me see what you could do to go in and chastise your own. Then we'll know if we made the decision to divide. So we won't divide and conquer, because what you're doing is putting all of our people in jail, and you're letting your people run free. and without being persecuted. And then when we have to press issues about you chastising one of your own that's in blue that has shot down somebody in cold blood, you have a very difficult time making that decision. So maybe you should govern your own, and maybe African Americans should govern their own. It's no two ways to see this thing. We must split up the criminology because it is not working. It'll never work as long as your men and women have fear of the black man and woman. They will always shoot first and discuss later. And it cannot work because you must realize the criminology and the actual police department was created to protect those in power who own property and slaves, and they were put policemen in place to go after those who could perpetrate their property. But there was no intention to go and to assist and aid the black families, and never were we supposed to call a policeman on anyone white. We got statistics that show that all of these black codes came about right after the Jim Crow era, and they're still in effect. And they have not left us. They're still with us. But we, as mediators and as advocates, have a responsibility to go on these airways to clear the air, to clear the congestion, to talk about real issues that are real and that are there and that still plague us. We have elders in our community that are African American priests and priestess and babalawos. These are honorable people, not to mention the priests and not to mention the preachers and the evangelists. They could govern their own penal institution for African Americans easily. They're not going to let them run rampant and wreak havoc. They're going to address the errors of our own people. But we don't want any other Caucasian putting their hands on our people, shooting them over a traffic ticket, shooting them over nothing, because that has to stop. If you have to shoot a person just because they're going in their glove compartment or their purse, then the real problem is not there that wanted you to even stop the person in the first place. All this double checking, give the ticket and let the people go on. Don't go through the massiveness of checking their identity and who they are. Give the ticket. If they don't show up to court, then let them suffer the consequence. Why does a man have to die because he reached for his registration out of the glove compartment? Why does a woman have to die because you thought she was going in her purse for a weapon? Why? It doesn't have to happen. And it has to stop. Common sense will tell you that every stop does not want this thorough check like this. And when you check the person's ID out, if they're good, let them go on. Don't take out your billy stick and beat them, and don't take out your taser and tase them. And just the other day, a young man saw a 14-year-old minor that was being accosted and beaten and thrown down on the ground. And when the elder walked up to the policeman and said, couldn't you put him on the bench and get him off the ground? Could you handle him a little bit different? They come back with the statement that we have this man under arrest when he's a minor. They're overzealous, and all of this overzealousness has to stop. And it cannot continue to go on where you're wreaking havoc on us. Wreak havoc on your own. Release us from your authority. And with the approval of our president, he can step in and say, yes, all denominations of people can be divided amongst their own. You don't see Hispanic or you don't see Filipino. They govern their own people. And the law doesn't require for them to go down to the police department with them. They send them back to their own people. Then why not send the African Americans back to their own people so we can govern our own people and govern them fairly? It's got to be done. There's no two ways about it. as I've never seen you handle a mother, Caucasian mother or Caucasian young boy in a manner that you've handled the black people. You have used unnecessary roughness with the black people for no account reason other than your fear. If you fear us, then leave us alone and let us go to our own elders to be chastised. But you can no longer come into our house with guns and say that you will come in there for a wellness check. You cannot plead that garbage. You are not coming in for a wellness check when you don't identify yourself, and when you come in on the young person and you shoot through the window. You're not looking to see that they're safe. You are impeding them to death, and death must be rendered upon you, because you had no business going to that person's house to bring that type of heat to them when you say you're going for a wellness check. Now, we've got to get our right mind back and realize what is really going on. Nobody cares about the deaths of the black people. They just keep going on and on and on. And you figure the more you shoot down, the less people that are left to kill. No, it's going to change. And the universe is going to step in and make you surrender your rifles against the black people, surrender your billy clubs, and you're going to surrender all your apparatus, and you no longer will be able to govern over us because you bent the law too much and you use the law against someone when in fact you have not been a lawmaker, but you've been lawlessness. You've been creating lawlessness throughout our community. We can't have it anymore, and we won't tolerate it anymore. Yes, there's a lot of people that are upset, but don't just get upset. Get on the airways to talk about it. Call for a platform in your community. Call for a platform to have discussions, to talk about what are we to do about our judicial system and our criminal police department system. What are we to do? Do we need to put them on strike? Do we need to send them home for a spell and see how we can phantom without them on the beat? Do we need to give them a long awaited vacation? Do we need to put them out of business for a while until we decide what is necessary? No, the country's not going to lose faith, and they're not going to go under. And you're not going to see lawlessness running rampant. You're going to see justice delivered properly. And maybe you should have the women running things to expenditure justice properly. But you cannot keep beating us down and killing us and saying it's all in the name of activating the law. The law don't work like that. And you cannot tell me anything different. And now we're looking to you, Mr. President. We're looking to you, Trump. You got a chance to turn this whole thing around. If you change the judicial system, meet with us in these black historical colleges. Don't just come in to give a speech and to get a plaque. Come in to really listen to us and to hear what we have to say. And don't turn the eye. Don't flip the switch and come in and take over. Don't do that, because you make a lot of black colleges awfully upset. Come in and do the right thing. You said you had a plan for us as black people. You said that you were going to be the best president for us black people. But it has turned out all wrong. And you've got to address some of our questions, because we want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. And we're asking you to come back to these historical colleges, call a forum, and allow the young people to govern themselves and to address you with questions and answers that they want answers to. And come in and do the best you can to reestablish these communities and take the men in blue off the corners and out of their community so we can start all over again. Now, I'm saying this because there's a lot of people that are out now that are speaking about this topic. But I wonder how many people are ignorant of the fact that what has gone on with our historical universities and colleges. Some people don't even know about it. They don't have a clue that the president flipped the switch, and instead of the 2020 group presenting these questions and answers to our president, the president came in with his own agenda and gave his own speech and received an award and did not entertain any questions from the black college student. That is a shame. And that is dishonorable because black people that are young need to be able to formalize their question and get an answer. But nevertheless, we as African American know all this stuff is going on, and all we think that is never going to come to visit our house, and we got our gun. Well, I'm going to tell you, your guns are not going to be the answer. Even the guns that the men in blue are not going to be the answer, because our universe is coming in to take over, and Mother Nature is awfully upset. And when she takes over, you think you've seen wars before and heard rumors of wars. It's going to be worse than that. It's not only going to be phantom, but it's going to be earthquakes, volcanoes, all kind of things when Mother Nature gets fed up. And when a woman is fed up, ain't nothing you can tell her. So mothers, please come out and speak out against what is happening. Because when we get fed up, we want to come back with a plan, and we're going to offer you a plan that you cannot refuse that will save your life. We are your mothers. All of the individual bodies came down through our loins. We produce every individual on this planet. And because we are your mothers, we have the right to chasten you and to warn you about what is about to happen, that the universe and Mother Nature are going to impede upon you. If you don't believe me, look at the signs of time. And if you're a Bible-thumping person, look at your Bibles and look at your prophecies that have already been made. We're living in the age of Aquarius. This is a time when we should see brotherly love, just like they have in the state of Pennsylvania. It should be extending itself through helping one another. But instead, we are crawling over bodies that have been killed unnecessarily. And anyone that takes a life unnecessarily will pay with consequences and repercussions. And nevertheless, we as African Americans are going to have to point out these things. We cannot act like Stephen Fletcher, or we cannot act like a mammy. We got to stand up and speak about injustice, because injustice against one of us is injustice against all of us. And I know that we see what's happening. And every other month or so, something is happening where a man in blue, right there in Dallas, Fort Worth, first it was the woman in blue, now it's the man in blue, are coming out and just shooting people outright under the assumption that they've gone crazy, that they've lost their ever-loving mind. Well, let us help you find it, because you will not lose it in our community and start shooting down our people for no reason and thinking that you are going to get off in 5 years. We will press that point, because you are following the orders of the wrong master. And if your master has told you to go out and to kill them all, children and women, I got news for you. Some of us believe in a higher force, and the higher force gives those kind of orders because he knows what he's doing. But just as you think you're going to kill all of us, our higher source may come down here. And you don't want the higher source to come down here and do any chastisement of any kind. Because when he brings chastisement upon you, you're going to have to come to the black folks to ask them to pray a prayer that will stop these calamities from coming up on your families. Not only is it calamities, but illness and sickness. He has done this before with the Black Plague, and don't think he won't do it again. You can't just keep running rampant, doing inappropriate things to black people and thinking nothing is not going to happen to you. Do you realize that we are the chosen one? And these political parties who are out here demonstrating that they can be like the Germans with the swastika and do all kinds of things. And not only do all kinds of things, but with all kinds of people and animals. Don't think that you won't be judged because of that. God is going to judge swiftly and soon. Because if you think you're big and bad enough to kill off all of his people, then to lay with others that are like you and to become bestiality-like, don't think that God will not come and show his hand. And he's about to show his hand real soon. And the reason why I'm saying this, if you get the women, like myself and others, upset to the point where too much is happening, you're going to get the moaning women to rise up. And when the moaning women rise up, you're going to ask us to stop moaning because of what's going to happen in your camp. You're going to ask us to pray for you because the moaning women are being called on now to stop calamities against the black man and woman, to stop all of this burst of energy, field of hate. And this hatred has gone too far. You cannot come into our community under the impression that you're going to shoot us down. You cannot come into our community and be strapped and ready to kill one of ours, because if you do, there is going to be repercussions 5 or 10 years. God is going to go down to the 1,000th generation in your household. And I'm sure you don't want that. So we got to give back the authority to the black man to rule and govern his own household. This must be done immediately, thus said the Spirit, giving us the right with our ancestors and our elders to reside over us in a council of elders, taking back the responsibility that we should have had in the first place. You are not to govern us. You cannot touch my anointed and do my prophet no harm, says the good book. And I'm saying this to let you know, you better keep your hands off the priests and priestesses and the anointed. You're doing the prophet harm. And God has already commissioned you to take your hands off his prophet and do his priestess no harm. I'm afraid of what can happen to you and yours. So it's very vital that you should come to an agreement with us, President Trump. Sit down with us to ward off the calamities that are almost upon this earth, and to talk about what can you do different, because you made us a promise and you said that you were going to be the best president for the black people. What have you done for us lately? We're waiting for you to do this. We've been patiently waiting for you. Now it's your turn to come to us in the Black Historical Societies of all the universities and set up a platform to properly let us address the issues and plagues that beset us. I'm pleading with you now. On this podium, I'm pleading with you. I want to thank every Blog Talk member, every YouTube member that will speak on this topic. It is far overdue, and it's necessary that you should call a special segment. This is a special segment. We interrupt these airways to bring this topic to you, to address the issue that are at hand, that has to be eradicated immediately, ASAP. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to the sound of my voice. I am just a voice in the wilderness who God has called to speak out as an advocate. No precedents do I set, but no hairs on my head should be touched. No calamity should come amongst my family and I, because I told you I have weapons of destruction that are not visible to the naked eye. The tongue itself cuts like a two-edged sword, cuts going in and cuts coming out. And being a priestess and sitting on the side of the elders watch over me, and they determine what I say and what I don't say. And I have those who have made their transition who are around me now. Can't you see the 7 tribes that are around me? Can't you see all of my ancestors that came here from heaven with me to fight at any moment that needs to be fought. I don't come here talking and joking and smoking. I come here to let you know that I am an ancestral child and a keeper of the shrine. I attend to those who made their transition. So there's nothing you can do to me or nothing you can say against me or mine. So I warn you under all circumstances to leave me alone and allow my voice to be heard throughout the nation. And at the same time, I plead with you to quickly get back to the women to discuss how we can mourn for you for the times that are yet to come, how we can ward off this calamity that's about to come up on this nation for lawlessness. And I tell you that another child should not be shot down or killed by men in blue. Else calamities are going to come up on this earth quickly because we cannot take it anymore. We will not tolerate it anymore, and we will speak out against it. Like it or not, the ancestors have spoken, and the melanin is among us. And if you don't see us going to and fro, that is not because our ancestors and deceased loved ones are not here. They're here now. We've called them here on this earth. And don't be surprised that they'll show up at any time. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening to the sound of my voice. I hope you take it seriously and that we will come up on a meeting to discuss separating ourselves from you, to have our own judicial system. And when we are found in an error or in a corruption, we will be sent to our elders to address our problem where they can address us. And no one else outside of our own people will put their hands on us or will call us to task or pull us over in the heat of the night or maybe even throw us to the ground and beat us like dogs anymore. That's not happening because the ancestors are out now and they're going to be looking for any situation like that. So keep your hands off the black people. Keep your hands off the black people. I say it again, keep your hands off the black people. Quit beating them to the ground and quit using your weapons against them. Because we have weapons of mass destruction that are not seen. And you haven't seen nor heard when our ancestors come upon us and begin to do the work in us. Well, we will call things that be not as though they were. And we will call down the great forces to be that will overtake you. And you will wonder what happened in the midst of your trial. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. You've been great listeners, and I am glad that I had this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you, and do have a great day. Oh, double, and straight ahead and into the future, Milwaukee. Straight ahead and into the future, Kenosha. Straight ahead and into the future, Indianapolis. Straight ahead and into the future, Avon. Straight ahead, Indianapolis. Straight ahead and into the future, Avon. Straight ahead into the future, Dallas, Texas. Straight ahead and into the future, Garland. Straight ahead and into the future, Maryville, Indiana. And straight ahead and into the future, Gary, Indiana. Oh, double. Baba Booey to you, y'all. Peace.